Hello everybody, welcome back to today's video. We're going to be going over your third fall forecast for the year of 2020. We're going to be going over your temperature anomaly forecast as well as your precipitation anomaly forecast. And then at the end of the video, we are going to be going over my overall forecast for kind of on average the entire fall of 2020. This is going to be going from September 1st to November 30th. So we're going to be going through meteorological fall, which again is September 1st to November 30th. And that is the time frame that all of these forecasts go through. So let's get right into it here with your temperature anomaly forecast. We're going to start off here with your below average area, and this really did change from last time. Last time only the south central United States in my second fall forecast were below average, but now that's really expanded northward, and now pretty much the entire central third of the United States is under a slightly below average region. This, if you're just in this light blue region, this is where on average it'll be a couple degrees below average. But if you do get into this darker blue shade here and this more vibrant shade of blue over parts of Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, as well for another region there in the northern plains and northern Great Lakes. That's where you have moderately below average temperatures that are forecasted, and that's where it's going to be a lot more noticeable in these regions that are going to have frequent blasts of chilly air. Now, the pattern that I think we're really going to go into is a lot of upper level low pressure systems that are going to kind of dive through the Great Lakes, and on the backside, I think you're going to have some very chilly air, and we're already seeing that in just some of the shorter term models, that type of pattern developing, and even in some of the longer range models, some of those models also show that pattern developing. So I do think you're going to have multiple scenarios, even into September and October, where you get below 32 degrees in many of these areas in the northern plains, just because of the pattern that we are going to be in. Now, here is your above average region, and this is for both coasts, so for parts of the western United States, basically from the Rockies and westward, and then for the eastern United States, from the Appalachian Mountains and eastward, that's where I am expecting slightly above average temperatures for the fall. If you're just in this yellow region, this is not going to be too noticeable, but once you get into this orange region for the southeast coast, as well as for parts of the areas west of the Rockies, that's where I'm expecting some moderately above average temperatures there, and this is where it's going to be a lot more noticeable, and it will be about 4 to 5 degrees above average for the entire fall, which again, I'm using meteorological fall, which goes from September 1st to November 30th. Now, let's even add our third layer of above average or well above average layer, and I don't put this out too much, especially for longer range 3 month forecasts and the fall forecast and the spring forecast and the winter forecast. I don't typically bring out the darkest blue or the darkest red because it is so anomalous, and I had to bring it out this time because of how warm it looks to be across southern Oregon, western Nevada, western Arizona, and all of California there. That's where I'm expecting well above average conditions, and even in this region, it's not always going to be it's not always going to be very, very warm. You will have a couple colder shots, but for the most part, I do think it will be fairly above average. Now, let's start going into your precipitation anomaly forecast, and this one is a little bit closer to average. You don't have really any too many anomalies in this one. We have some below average precipitation forecasted, and this is just the first shade of below average over parts of the northern plains, throughout the central plains, and then down through the desert southwest, and then also another region there for the south central and the southeastern United States. Something I want to point out over parts, especially over the coastal regions of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, as well as Georgia. If we do get an landfalling hurricane, these can really go pretty much the opposite way and actually be above average. But that's just something I can't predict that far out. So if you do get a hurricane, I would really leave out the coastal regions, because if you do get a hurricane that can bring 6 to 12 inches of rain, that will definitely skew your precipitation anomalies well above average. So that's really something we have to take into account. And I do think you will have an above average hurricane season, so you might actually be slightly above average, especially for the coastal regions. But again, that's just something I can't predict where these storms are going to landfall. If we did not have hurricanes, I do think it would be drier than normal in the southeast, though. Now, here is the above average region region, and this is our first and only shade of above average, and this is for parts of the northwest, and then also for a little column there from the Great Lakes, and then through the northeast. That's where I'm expecting slightly above average precipitation. You can really tell on this map there's not going to be too many areas of very dry weather or too many areas of very wet weather. I think it's overall going to be fairly averaged out, but these areas that I highlighted are going to be particularly dry or wet. Now, here is my overall forecast, and this is probably the forecast I love to make the most, and just because of how colorful and how fun it is to make. Now, this is going to kind of give you an overall look at what you should expect for this winter, or for this fall, I mean. Now, here is your wet and warm area in this green for parts of Oregon, Washington, and also for southern Idaho there. This is where you are going to have a very, very active pattern in terms of a lot of precipitation moving through those regions, but it will still be above average in terms of temperature. So you will have a lot of precipitation as well as a lot of warmer weather ahead. Now, here's in this kind of red shade, this is where I'm expecting very warm conditions. This is also the area that was in the well above average temperature region, and I think it is just going to be extremely warm throughout those regions, and that might actually fuel a couple of wildfires, unfortunately, over parts of California, Arizona, and Nevada. So, unfortunately, that is the pattern that we're going to go into for the fall, which is the peak wildfire season for those regions. Now, here in this orange shade, this is where I'm expecting just warmer than normal conditions. This is the moderately above average temperature region, and this is where generally it is going to be warmer than normal for these regions. Now, in this area over the higher elevations of northern and eastern Idaho, as well as northwestern Wyoming and westernmost Montana, I am expecting mountain snow, and most likely less mountain snow than normal, or a little bit later mountain snow than normal, just because I am expecting some warmer than normal temperatures. So it is going to take a little bit longer for these areas to see their snowfall than normal. It's going to take a little bit longer to get their first snowfall in those regions, but I do think the above average precipitation might actually help out these regions get a bit of snow. So it's going to be closer to average, maybe slightly below average in terms of your snowfall for those higher elevation regions in the northern Rockies. Now, here in this yellow shade, this is where I'm expecting flip-flop conditions, moving from cold further to the east and transitioning to warm sometimes, just because you are going to be squished in between two different air masses. You're going to be squished in between a very warm air mass and a very cold air mass, and they're going to interchange throughout the fall, I do think. Now, here in the south central United States, I am expecting drier than normal conditions for parts of Texas, and also slithering into Arkansas there. Now, over much of the central and north central part of the country, I'm expecting chilly conditions in this darker blue shade, and this is where I don't think it's going to be extremely cold all the time. You will have a couple warmer spells, but it should stay generally just a couple degrees below average for much of the fall. Now, in this purple shade, this is where I'm expecting Canadian blasts, not Arctic blasts, because I think most of the Arctic air is going to stay a little bit further to the north, especially in the fall. I do think the Arctic air will come down in the winter, but I'm expecting more colder air blasts from areas, let's say in Alberta, Canada, in Saskatchewan. So a lot of these more southern regions in Canada, central to southern regions in Canada, that's where your air is going to be coming from over parts of the north central United States. So not necessarily Arctic blasts, but more southern slash central Canada Arctic air that's going to really be infiltrating down into the United States throughout the fall. Now, here in all around the Great Lakes, this is where I'm expecting lake effect rain slash snow. You can get lake effect rain, and we've already seen it this summer, where we have some decent and very potent thunderstorms actually form over the Great Lakes and really get going over the Great Lakes, and then just move further to the east as time goes on and kind of really intensify. So you can get lake effect rain, and you can also get lake effect snow, of course. And I do think that's going to be something to watch out for. I do think it's going to be a little bit more enhanced this fall and winter, just because of how warm the summer was, warming up the lakes, and that can really actually help make a lot of lake effect rain or snow, depending on how warm or cold the temperatures are. Now, here it is in the south central and mainly the Gulf states and also the southeastern coastal regions. This is where I'm expecting very active tropics, and you will have potentially one or two, maybe three or four more landfalling storms throughout this hurricane season. So the hurricane season goes all the way through November, so it's all the way through the fall time frame, and that's something that we still have to watch out for. Even though it doesn't seem, it seems that we're in fall, it's getting a little bit chillier. You can still have some very, very potent tropical storms, and then we really have to be on high alert for that. Now, in this kind of column in between, let's say, parts of Illinois, Missouri, into parts of the Appalachian Mountains, kind of that slot in between there is where I'm expecting average conditions, not too warm, not too cold, and it will kind of transition between warm and cold occasionally, just because you will be squished in between warm air and cold air, and it's generally just going to average out to be quite average for this fall season. Now, over this yellow shade, through the interior eastern United States, this is where I'm expecting slightly warmer than normal conditions. Nothing that's going to be too noticeable, and at times you will be colder than normal by quite a few degrees, but I do think it'll average out to be just slightly warmer than normal in that region. Now, in this kind of gray shade for parts of West Virginia and also Western Maryland, this is where I'm expecting mountain snow, especially. I think you're going to have a little bit less mountain snow, especially in the fall, but I do think that'll pick up in the winter this fall season. Now, in the northern New England region, as well as northern upstate New York, this is where I'm expecting early snow, and I do think your snow will most likely be right around early October. Last year we saw snowfall around October 3rd and 4th in these regions, and I do think you'll have something close to that, maybe a little bit later this fall season. Now, your final layer here, and this is for the coastal Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. This is where I'm expecting coastal storms to be potent. We already had a couple of them this hurricane season, and that really looks to continue, and you will most likely stay as rain for much of the fall season. In terms of these coastal storms, I don't expect any big snowfall nor'easters in November and October, but I think maybe as you get into the winter, it starts to get a little bit colder. That might be the pattern that really sets up a lot of coastal storms look to be active, and mainly just because of that ridge that is over Bermuda right now, bringing all those storms up the East Coast. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.